When the Jews under Nehemiah returned to Jerusalem, they found the walls of the city broken down and the gates thereof destroyed with fire. And under Nehemiah's leadership, they at once set about the task of rebuilding. And during that rebuilding, an event happened which is a direct link with today. The Samaritans, who then as now lived at Shechem, the ancient town between the mountains of Ebal and Sink, asked to be allowed to help. And when they were refused, they went back to Shechem and settled in the village which you see at the foot of this hill, and there began to carry on the religion of Moses in their own way. And their descendants have done so ever since. Every year in April, they hold the Passover on the top of this bleak mountain, just on the site where you see the road crossing it. And everything they do is done exactly as it is commanded in the book of Exodus. For a week before the feast, the whole population of the Samaritans camps on the top of the mountain in tents and booths, and booths are just small huts. There are only about 300 Samaritans left, because the laws of their religion, the first 5 books of the Bible, forbids them to marry outside. And then every day, before the feast, the priests, dressed all in white, go out onto the mountainside to pray. Most of the men are priests. On the eve of the Passover itself, they prepare the scaffolding for the sacrifice. And the sacrifice itself, sheep, are kept in a pen and cleaned specially every day. Pits are dug, this one to burn the parts of the sheep which it is forbidden to eat, and this one to actually cook the sacrifice. You notice the British police who have now to protect the Samaritans. And then, just before sunset, the sacrifice is cooked, the sheep being killed in batches of 7, and their blood allowed to run into the ground. They are now being killed just inside that circle. Meanwhile, water is heated to clean the carcasses afterwards, and the high priest, this is the high priest of the Samaritans, prays almost continuously. You see what a distinctive type of face they have. The carcasses themselves are cleaned largely by small boys. Here's a boy cleaning a carcass. Boys with long hair are the sons of priests. Their religion forbids them to cut it. The carcasses must be cleaned and gutted whole, and no bones broken. And while the boys hold the trestles, they chant in ancient Hebrew, and the priests themselves cut away the parts which the book of Exodus forbids them to eat. These they burn carefully over the pit you saw a little earlier. And if all this looks rather gruesome to you, remember that it is a very primitive religion, the religion of Moses, practiced, if not exactly as he practiced it, as it was practiced very soon after the Israelites reached Palestine. When the carcasses are ready, poles are driven through them to act as spits, and then they are let down into that pit where the fire has been prepared to be cooked. Here they are going down. And when they are let down, the pit is then covered over with wattles, and the wattles with mud. The mud, of course, to damp the flames, because the sacrifice is cooked by the ashes and not by the flames. You can see the spit sticking up through the mud. Now the pit is finally covered over. When the sacrifice is cooked, men go down into the pit and hand up the meat in baskets. then while the high priest prays, each family sitting round on the ground in a circle eats the Passover as it was commanded in the book of Exodus in a hurry. They use no implements, but they tear the meat off with their hands. They pray at intervals throughout the 24 hours, and it's a weird sight to see them, especially under a full moon, dressed all in their white, swaying backwards and forwards, their chant rising and falling, rather like a wind. In front of them on their deck chair is a copy of the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, written, I think, 200 BC, and perhaps one of the oldest books in the world. It's written on papyrus. But besides its historical interest, this book is a symbol, because it was by just such a tenacity to the letter of a law that not only the Samaritans, but the Jews preserved their identity after they returned from Babylon.